I remember a story when I was a resident. One of the first weeks that I was on the oncology service as a pediatrician, we admitted a girl who was 19 years old who had leukemia when she was 6. And we follow these kids their whole lives because not because of the cancer causing problems later on, but because of the chemotherapy and radiation can cause issues far down their lifespan. And this girl came to us at 19 because she complained of pain everywhere in her body. She said the bones in her ears hurt. So she had already tried oral pain medication at home. It didn't work. And she was being admitted for IV pain medicine. And sometimes you can tell if someone's coming for IV pain medicine because they're seeking the high. That's something that we get trained to try and look for. And this girl just didn't fit that mold. It seemed like she was really, truly hurting. And we couldn't figure out why. What's worse was that we couldn't actually figure out how to make her feel better. We were giving her this pain, and it wasn't working, so we were giving her higher and higher and higher doses. So about a weekend, we were stumped. And we had everybody come to try and figure things out and help us out. The pain specialist came, a neurologist came, a dermatologist came, took a biopsy of her skin to see if she had extra pain fibers in her skin. A psychiatry resident came and told her it was all in her head, which she didn't like. We were stumped now 2 weeks in. And she was on a dose that could knock out a horse. Wasn't seemingly doing anything for her. So one night after I was on call, I decided I was going to stop into her room after I was done my work and ready to go home. And I wanted to try something that I had learned back as a medical student. As Lori mentioned, I had learned about mindfulness, mind-body exercises, meditation, guided imagery as a medical student through a program that was designed to teach us to use them for ourselves. And I saw the impact that this had on my life as a student, so I figured it was worth a shot. So a little before noon, before I went home, I went into her room, and I asked if she'd be open to trying an imagery, something that we're going to try later on this afternoon. And she'd actually tried meditating when she was undergoing her chemotherapy as a kid, so she was open to it. We did this exercise, and it seemed to work a little bit too well. I thought she fell asleep. So I got up, I started to leave the room, and I got to the door, and she looked at me, and she said, "No, Hope, I'm awake, come on back." Sat down, and all of a sudden, the floodgates opened up. She started talking about how when she was a kid, her dad abused her, how she watched her dad physically abuse her mom. She told me about being bullied as a kid, how she wanted to escape everything, so she went off to college as far away as she could think of. She went to Hawaii. She was a freshman there now, and she realized that she was feeling isolated and alone. She was home on break right now and had opened up to her mom, and she thought that she was bisexual. Her mom was having none of it. I actually don't remember how our conversation ended. I remember that I sat and I listened. At some point, I got up, I went home, slept, came back the next day. She wasn't there. And I asked one of my colleagues, one of the other residents, what happened to her? And she said, yeah, yesterday afternoon, she just decided that she didn't want medicine anymore. She wanted to go home. Now, do I think that a 5-minute meditation cured her of her pain? Maybe it allowed her space to connect with herself in such a way that she could realize what was actually causing her pain. Maybe because she had done it before, it reminded her of a tool that she could use when things got tough. And like I said, parent is tough, a little traumatic. Before you had kids, you got to go out whenever you wanted to. You got to travel. Got to sleep in. Maybe you even started to figure out a little bit of who you are as a person. And then along comes this bundle of joy, for whom we're supposed to feel nothing but love and warmth and affection. But with that love and warmth and affection come sleepless nights and tears and the constant self-doubt that you just might be doing something wrong all the time. Parenting is the most wonderful, amazing, awe-inspiring trauma you will ever go through. It's beautiful in all of its imperfections, as long as we don't let those imperfections swallow us whole. So I'm very happy to be here today talking about what I know is one of the best tools that we can use as parents to help us navigate the challenges in everyday life with kids, with work, with everything that we face. And that is mindfulness. Mindfulness, depending on who you ask, will be defined in different ways, especially depending on how secular or how Buddhist they want to be. The simplest definition is living fully in the moment. To me, that sounds a lot less like a deep life philosophy than a hashtag. So I like instead the definition of being fully aware of what is happening inside of you and outside of you in any given moment. I actually like to add on an extra level to that, and that is sort of a meta-mindfulness, recognizing how those things are related, noticing how what's going on around you impacts the way you think and feel, recognizing the way that you think and feel determines how you interpret and respond to what's happening around you. Mindfulness is practiced most commonly with meditation, and the most frequently used type of meditation is a breathing meditation. Now, since I've heard that you all have access to Headspace, and some of you may have used it and some may not, I'm not going to do a meditation like I thought that we might. We'll do something later on. But essentially with a breathing meditation, you notice your breath. The idea is not that you are actively trying to change it, trying to slow it down or make it more measured. You simply notice the fact that you are breathing. You feel the movement of the air as it enters and leaves your body. You feel the feelings that you get as you begin to calm your mind and focus on one thing. If you lose your attention, simply notice that, draw it back to your breath. We use the breath because there are a lot of physiologic benefits that we'll get to in a few minutes, but also because it's always there. Anytime you need to feel centered or grounded, your breath is the perfect thing to focus on because it never goes away. There are a lot of different ways that you can practice mindfulness because meditating is not really for everybody. We often feel like we don't have time to add in something like a meditation, even though it only takes a couple of minutes. Because if you ask any parent, hey, how's life? The answer that you get, busy, right? That's how we define ourselves as parents. If you want to be depressed or want a conversation stopper, ask a parent how the new school year is starting. Busy, right? So luckily, we don't have to just sit and meditate like that stock photo. There are a lot of other ways that you can practice meditation and practice mindfulness. You can mindfully wash the dishes. Not something that everybody is jumping and excited to go do. But if you think about it, as you wash the dishes, you feel the weight of the plate in your hand. Feel the movement of the muscles in your arm as you scrub. Feel the temperature, the water and the pressure of the water against your fingers. Notice how that spaghetti sauce is starting to slowly go away off of that plate, and the water in the sink is turned orange. Get that satisfying, squeaky resistance as that plate starts to get clean. You can mindfully wash the dishes if you want to wash the dishes. But this is my favorite way to actually practice mindfulness, especially with kids, because kids love this exercise, mindful eating. You can do this with one bite of one meal once a week with your family and see what they think. When I first introduced mindful eating in small groups, I usually do it with a grape because a grape gives you this explosion of flavor. And here's how you can do it. Instead of just eating, you can do it now since most of you are eating. Instead of just going through the motion of eating our meal, with a grape, hold it in your hand. You feel the weight of the grape, the temperature of the grape. You notice the colors. Oh, you have a grape. Notice the colors. Are they the same throughout? Are they different? Are there imperfections in your grape? You bring it up to your face, to your lips. Feel the temperature. Can you smell anything yet? Having that grape close to your mouth, does it make you salivate? Do you feel an urge to want to do something with this grape right now? Then you finally put it into your mouth, but don't bite it. Push it around. Feel the weight on your tongue. Feel the temperature. Then you finally take a bite. And explosion of flavor. And as you slowly chew, feel the texture change as your teeth go through the skin of that grape. Feel the movement of your tongue as you wash it back to your throat and feel it come all the way down to your belly. That's one bite of one grape. It makes the experience a whole lot more pleasurable. And what's really neat about mindful eating is that it also shows you what is good food and what is not. My wife is back here filming, and she practiced for a while as a holistic health and nutrition coach, and she used to do this exercise with a grape and then a cookie. And the first bite of the cookie is pretty tasty, and the second bite is pretty boring. The third bite's really dull and dry. So you get to know what experiences really are great and which you can let pass by. Now, why do we care? Besides just making grapes better, why do we want to practice mindfulness and bring it into our lives? It's so that we can nod and smile at little old ladies without too much malice in our heart. True. See, I love my grandmothers. I love my mom. But as a pediatrician, we actually get trained to tune little ladies out. It sounds really terrible. But have you ever had the experience of your kid has a cough for a week, and you know he's fine, but your mom guilts you into taking him to the pediatrician, right? I never would have let you had a cough for a week. He could die. He might have pneumonia. He's got to see the doctor. We get this all the time, right? So actually, when you get certified to be board certified as a pediatrician, you take the test. One of the questions on the test every time starts off with, grandmother is concerned that. And the answer is always reassurance, every time. But as parents, we actually have one other little old lady encounter that's a little bit more frustrating, and that is the grocery store checkout line, right? Your child is sitting in the front of your cart, has been a terror through the entire trip, and you get to your checkout line, and all of a sudden she's angelic, and the little old grandmother sitting in front of you turns around and says, precious. Honey, it goes by so fast. Enjoy every moment. She has no idea there was a World War III meltdown on aisle 6. This is not the moment you want to enjoy. The purpose of mindfulness is not to make life more pleasurable. It's not to make us enjoy every moment, even though those grapes get to be a whole lot tastier. That's absurd. Ridiculous. The idea of mindfulness is to help us navigate the ocean of life without letting any particular moment rock our boat and tip us over. When it comes to being a parent, practicing mindfulness isn't going to keep your kids from doing outrageous things. What it's going to do is help you notice that thing they've just done. Notice that ball of hot, fiery ash building up in your gut, and those muscles start to tense in your back. And as you notice these things, ideally you can take your breath, recenter yourself, and respond instead of react on a whim. Now, there are other reasons why we should practice this as parents. Practicing mindfulness, again, and we'll get to in a moment, has health benefits. It gets us to a healthier place, both physically and mentally. And the trouble, though, is that we have to actually care about practicing ourselves. I know that a lot of you here probably want to learn about how to teach this to kids, and we can talk about that at the end. I've brought some toys we can use. But I really want to drive home the idea that it's important for us to practice this as parents. When I learned this as a medical student, their idea was not for us to ever use this with patients. They actually came out and said that. They said, we don't care if you ever use this with patients. We want you to use this for yourself. Their idea was to become more balanced, compassionate, self-aware people. We become more balanced, compassionate, self-aware doctors. And you can see how that plays out for parents too, right? If you are not in a good, healthy, balanced place yourself, how can you expect to interact with onto your kids with as much compassion, wisdom as you can't? Will you calm down? Doesn't work, does it? Right? So we need to make the effort to actually take on activities that are going to help us be healthier. Our kids know this, right? Have you ever had your kids say, Mommy's nicer when she goes to yoga? Yeah, they recognize it. But what's hard for us is that we're all built in with this natural flaw to not take care of ourselves, right? I have this too. We all have this once we have kids. Our natural flaw is that we want to sacrifice ourselves for our children. And it sounds terrible to really even question that, right? I love my kids. I would jump through a burning building with them. But for us as parents in this modern day, we often act as if there are burning buildings every single day. And this idea made a whole lot of sense. It's in us for a reason, right? When we were cave people, our lifespan was 30, 40, 45 years old. The makeup of this room would be a whole lot different way back then. Our job then was to make sure that our kids would live so the species would survive. Now we're living to be 80, 90, 100 years old. Our kids are going to live even beyond that. And so now our main role as parents is to model for them the type of life that we hope that they would lead. In Pablo Coelho's wonderful story, The Alchemist, Santiago is a shepherd who's off to find his personal legend, find his destiny. And he gets the sense that his dad, when he was young, wanted to travel the world and see the world himself. But at some point, he convinced himself that the everyday toil and burden of life was more important and more necessary. We want our kids to dream. We want our kids to take care of themselves as they get older so they can leave the nest. But every day, we're often showing them that the burden is a lot more important. And this is very easy for me to sit up here and give a sermon and say all these things, right? It's not so easy in real life, and I know that from personal experience. Lori has a line in one of her early blog posts on Mindful Return about how when you go from one child to two in your family, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It's more like 72. The first year that we had 2 kids was probably the hardest year in my life. My wife will agree, the hardest year we faced together, right? I had recently started a new job that had its own challenges. Meanwhile, I was teaching mindfulness to anybody who would listen. Over a 12-week span, I had taught an 11-week course to undergrads, an 11-week course to medical students, a 9-week course to parents. I was burnt out. I was burnt out on mindfulness, which is bonkers, right? I had let the tidal wave of life sweep me away without stopping to catch my breath. And the problem is that I didn't really fully grasp how mindfulness was supposed to be working for me. Even having practiced it for a few years and even being the person who was teaching to other people, I didn't fully understand how it worked. And so before we dive into any other conversations or questions, and we'll do an exercise, I want to really spend some time talking about how mindfulness works. Because understanding that was going to be crucial to actually getting the benefit of a practice for your life. So the first way is the one that is often talked about the most, and that is the physiology, the science of it. Have you ever done something for your kids that you thought was really nice, and they loved it so much that they asked for it all the time, and you started to regret you ever did it in the first place? In my house, that's the cloud story. So the cloud story, my mom taught to me when I was a kid, and used it whenever I had a hard time falling asleep. And then I started to ask for it all the time. Now my kids ask for it all the time too. In the cloud story, you are imagining that you are lying on a cloud, and what your cloud looks like, feels like. Imagine a warm sun up above you. You imagine each part of your body getting heavy, warm, deep down into a soft, fluffy cloud. I have this on my podcast. It's the most downloaded podcast episode I have in 3 years. And when you do this, if you were to do it for yourself or with your kids, you go through each piece and you say, now noticing that your feet feel heavy and warm. So heavy and warm they sink deep down into your soft, fluffy cloud. And it's very calming, soothing. And the way that it works is that it's turning on the part of your nervous system that is in charge of calm and healing. The nervous system we talk about is being split into voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary is the part you control, move your muscles around. Involuntary is kind of a misnomer because you can control some of it. But it's the stuff you don't think about controlling, like your heart rate, your respiratory rate, the dilation of your pupils. That involuntary nervous system is split then into the sympathetic, the fight or flight response. Gets your body ready to go, ready to take on a challenge. Blood goes to your brain, to your heart, to your muscles, to your lungs. You're fired up. There are a lot of negative consequences of having that sympathetic nervous system turned on too long when we're chronically feeling stressed. The parasympathetic nervous system, for resting and digesting, all the things that don't matter so much in a time of need, when you heal, when you build muscle. Meditating and things like the cloud story turn on that parasympathetic nervous system. And we can demonstrate this in real time with different tools. When I was a medical student, they had us do what was essentially a cloud story. And they taped a thermometer onto our fingers. And they said, now look, when you are stressed out, your fingertips don't matter. Your sympathetic nervous system doesn't send any blood that way. We're going to do this exercise, and we want you to look at the temperature of your fingertip at the start and at the end. And they led us through something very similar to the cloud story, feeling heavy and warm and relaxed. And over 10 minutes, I had turned the temperature of my fingertip from 77 degrees to 97 degrees, 20 degrees in 10 minutes. I was impressed, and that was one of the first ways that I really latched onto this. What's more impressive with the science is the work of Sarah Lazar, who is a researcher at Harvard. And she does work looking at people who have never meditated versus people who go through an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course versus Buddhist monks who have meditated for their whole lives. And what she has demonstrated is that there is more activity in the parts of the brain in charge of focus, compassion, self-awareness, executive function, more activity in those parts of the brain than people who have more experience with mindfulness practice. What's even cooler is that using MRI, she's demonstrated that the parts of the brain in charge of those feelings and abilities are thicker people who've had more years of practice. You can grow your brain like a muscle to actually develop the traits and the skills that you want to have. That, to me, is a home run. There's a second way that mindfulness has its impact on us. And to help demonstrate this, I would like to do one exercise with you. We'll turn on some music. If you can find a nice, comfortable place, allowing your arms and legs to feel relaxed, head and neck aligned and comfortable. Slowly and gently, as you feel comfortable with it, allowing your eyes to close. And now taking a couple of deep, cleansing breaths. Inhaling fully as you comfortably can. Sending the warm energy of your breath to any part of your body that's sore or tense or tight. Releasing that discomfort with an exhale. So you can feel your breath going through all the tense, tight places. Loosening and softening them. And gathering up all that tension and breathing it out. But more and more you feel calm, relaxed, safe. Watching the cleansing action of your breath with friendly but detached awareness. Any unwelcome thoughts or feelings you may have, those too are sent out with the breath. So that inside, you can calm, quiet, still, like a lake, no ripple. Now imagining yourself in a very special place. A place where you feel calm, peaceful, and easy. Could be a real place, a place you may have actually have been. Or it could be an imaginary place, a place in fairy tale. Indoors or outdoors, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that it is a place that feels comfortable, peaceful, and safe. Should more than one place come to mind, just choose one right now and imagine yourself there. If a special place has not yet appeared, allow yourself to imagine what your special place would look like if it did appear to you now. And looking around you in your special place, and to the left, the right, appreciating the scene with all of your senses. Listening to the sounds of your special place. Perhaps waves gently lapping upon the shore. Call of a distant bird. Maybe it's the sound of the wind in the trees. Or maybe you are surrounded by stillness and quiet. Just listening to whatever you are hearing. Wonderful place. So comfortable and peaceful to you. And now taking a deep breath and noticing the rich fragrances around you. Perhaps your favorite flower is in bloom. Or you may be smelling the pungent scent of a pine forest, the salty sea air. Perhaps it is the aroma of your favorite food that's surrounding you now. Just relaxing and enjoying the peace, comfort, safety of your special. Feeling the air as it caresses your skin. Ground securely under you. Touching and feeling the whole environment you are in. Noticing what you are wearing. Noticing what you have on your feet. What time of year is it? Time of day. What is the temperature? Is it warm? Cold? How old are you in your special place? And now just taking a few moments. Enjoy the safety, serenity, special place. Thanking yourself for taking this time for yourself. Perhaps promising yourself, reassuring yourself, you will return to this place, any other safe place, anytime you wish. Body and your mind heal, relax, and rejuvenate. As this imagery comes to an end, allowing your breathing to deepen, feeling the weight of your body against the chair, feet upon the floor. And before you open your eyes, I'd like you to notice how you feel right now, how your body feels, how your mind feels. And as you feel ready, slowly and gently allowing your eyes to open, feeling calm and alert and awake, but relaxed. With an exercise like this, the guided imagery, which is not a straightforward mindfulness activity, but you can be mindful by noticing what you feel like during it and afterwards. And this type of exercise, if you were to practice this enough, highlights the second way that a mindfulness practice works. And that is by routinely taking you to a place of calm awareness. So the more that you do this, the more you get accustomed to knowing what that state of calm awareness feels like. So that anytime you are not in that state, it stands out to you. Better still, because you've practiced it enough, you now also have the tool that you can use to get yourself back to that place. It becomes self-fulfilling. The third way, the most important way that mindfulness works, is the philosophy of it. This is the part that is the most important, yet often gets glossed over when people talk about mindfulness. We love talking about making your temperature go up by a few degrees or feeling calm and relaxed. This is, in my mind, the crucial way of how mindfulness actually works. When I first start talking to people about practicing mindfulness, a lot of folks who have never done it before say they want to meditate and get to a point where they can have a clear head for 30 minutes. I don't know why it's always 30 minutes, but that's what it usually is. And I say, no, I'd rather have you lose your attention a dozen times or 100 times when you meditate, and I'll tell you why. If we go back to the source material, if we go back to Buddhism, Buddhists have a distinction between pain and suffering. I don't know what the legal distinction. The distinction that Buddhists make is that pain is a natural experience of life. You've been newborn, they wake up 5 times at night. Right? You step on a Lego, that hurts. Suffering is what we create by labeling that painful experience as bad and wishing that it wasn't there. Ah, stupid Lego, who put this here? Darn kids. We create suffering by judging things. And so a core tenet in practicing mindfulness is understanding the idea of non-judgment. Not labeling something as good or bad, but simply being aware of its existence. As a parent, what that means is noticing that when you are having a hectic morning trying to get everybody off to school and out the door, noticing what that is doing to you physically and mentally so that maybe how you handle the traffic on the way to work is going to be a little bit different than had that morning been pretty mellow. Or when you have a stressful day at work, being aware of how you're feeling mentally and physically, so that you might be a bit more cognizant of the fact that you are probably a little easier to snap at your kids when you get home. It is this philosophy of non-judgment that you get when you meditate and you lose your focus. See, when you lose your attention on your breath when you meditate, that is your opportunity to be aware of that fact, to not be hard on yourself, to bring your attention back to your breath. Whenever you lose your focus when you meditate, that is your opportunity to be mindfully aware and to respond with kindness. Lose your breath when you meditate. That's your child talking back to you, your baby waking up for the 4th time that night. Every time you lose your focus, that is your opportunity to practice for the challenges that life throws your way. And that, to me, in the end, really is the core of how mindfulness works. It's what I didn't fully understand when my life was going haywire, and yet I was teaching this to everybody. It's what you lose when you download a meditation app and you delete it after a week because it just hasn't really sunk in just yet. When I first started teaching this, I used to teach a workshop in person for 9 weeks, 2 hours each week. Now I have an online course because busy. The first time I taught this, I had a mom who quit at the third week, and I was mortified. So I called her up, and I said, what's the story? What happened? What did I do wrong? And she said, well, it was fine, but I thought I was signing up for a mindful parenting course, and this was really just mindfulness for parents, which is funny because the course was called Mindfulness for Parents. But in the end, there is no difference between mindfulness for parents and mindful parenting. Mindful parenting is practicing mindfulness as a parent. Mindful lawyering is practicing law while being mindful, right? What mindful parenting really is that combination of being fully aware of what is going on inside of you and outside of you, in your home life and outside. How that impacts the way you interact with everybody around you and how you think about yourself. Is using that physiologic benefit, using the routine practice to take you to that state of calm awareness. Understanding this philosophy of non-judgment to help you be more of the person that you want to be, so you can then be the parent that you want to be. Mindfulness, the parent, is no different than practicing mindfulness in any other role that you have. There are no tricks. And the beautiful thing about there not being any tricks is that makes mindfulness and all of its benefits accessible to everybody. And those benefits can start by just noticing your breath.